Today on You're Buying a Home with Silas Lindenstein. Have you wondered what you should look for plumbing issues when you're inspecting a home? Well, today I'm interviewing Richard Hart from Hart Services, a plumber who will deep dive into all the plumbing issues you can ask for and more.
Silas gets real, buy and sell homes with a thrill. Out Seattle, baby, you know what's the deal. And he keep it real.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to You're Buying a Home with Silas Lindenstein. I am your host, Silas Lindenstein. Welcome to episode number 47. Today, I wanted to title this one Interview with the Plumber, which is, play on the Interview with the Vampire. Okay, anyway, what I did was I got reached out to by a company wanted to connect with me to share like maybe tips on what you should do when inspecting a house as far as plumbing goes. So I had an interview with Richard Hart of Hart Services. They are a plumbing company here in the Seattle, Tacoma, Linwood area, greater Seattle. So, but don't worry if you are not living in Seattle. This podcast is still for you because plumbing exists in almost every home around the country. So, and it's fine. So that's what this episode is going to be about, a deep dive into that, because I don't want to tell you everything I think about plumbing. I'm not an expert in it. I've told you before in past episodes, my tips and things that I would look out for, but I thought it would be helpful to listen. I mean, sort of from the horse's mouth, right? These are the people you would call in with these questions. And I wanted him to tell me whether I was right or wrong about things that I might say to a client after an inspection or before an inspection, either one. So he's here. We're going to interview him in a minute. If this is your first time tuning into the show, a couple things. If you are looking for the step-by-step how to buy a home episodes, those are episodes 1 through 10. 1 through 10 gets you the step-by-step how to buy a home process. Then you listen to everyone after to find out different processes, so you can listen in any order after that. But 1 through 10 is how to buy a home. If you want that in paper version, I do have an ebook that I can send you. I say paper and then I say an ebook, so I'm going to electronically send it. But if you want something you can look at, you can print. Hey, if you want a paper version, print it out at home. Do you still have a printer? I mean, I do. But do you? Or just read it on your tablet. I don't know. Anyway, email me at silas@silasgetsreal.com and I will send that back to you. If you've been to my site lately, I had a problem with the website, so it's rebuilding. My silasgetsreal.com. So if you go there and you're like, why is there nothing on here? There's a couple things, and I'm slowly rebuilding it because it got all messed up by technical things that are not real estate related, server space related. So it's getting rebuilt, and I'll get all the episodes linked up there again soon and everything. But for those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Silas Lindenstein. I'm a real estate agent in the Seattle, Washington area, and I help people buy and sell homes in this area. But even if you're not in this area, this podcast still has a lot of value. It's all about educating and empowering home buyers all over the nation. So, and I've connected with listeners in Florida, in Texas, Pennsylvania, Colorado, all over. And I've even connected some to real estate agents in those states. So if you are in the process if you are about to go start ready to buy a home, or even if you're in that early stage, it was like, am I ready? What's the market like? I can connect you with a real estate agent in your area. That's one of the services I provide here at no cost to you. So go ahead, email me at silas@silasgetsreal.com, and I'll connect you with a real estate agent in your area, or send you that ebook, whatever it is you want. And it helps the show. You get the value out of here, and then you get connected with pretty fine real estate agents all over the country. And that's invaluable. They've been vetted. How often do you get someone vetted by another agent so that you know they're good, right? That's what you get here. And I tell you, it's pretty exciting to me to get emails that I, an agent in Seattle, because of this podcast, was able to help somebody in Florida get into a home. That's like the most amazing thing. Like, I don't count those as my closings, but I feel like they should be, but I don't get the stats, but I get the satisfaction because I just really love educating people about home buying. And this is a great platform. And thank you for listening. Also, I'm getting episodes put up on my YouTube channel. You might be watching the YouTube channel and you're hearing this. I'll tell you on the YouTube, hey, there's a podcast, whole bunch of more episodes. Go listen to that. Same name. You're buying a home with Silas Lindenstein. And you listeners, go on the YouTubes. And, got to get into the reels and the TikToks. I got a TikTok. Got to do those eventually. But for now, here's the podcast. And that's it. So let's get into it. I'm about to roll this interview. It was a Zoom interview. So so you can watch them talk if you want, or you can just listen to it. I don't know. Got them on video. So that's coming up. But thank you so much for listening to the show. And here we go with an interview. Richard Hart of Hart Services right now. But welcome. Thank you for coming on again, folks. This is Richard Hart, co-owner of Hart Services, electrical and plumbing company out of you're out of Tacoma, right? That's your base.
Yeah, that's our main location. Yes.
But you service like a huge net, right?
I mean, most people. Yeah, our Tacoma location goes up to Renton, down to Olympia area, and then we have another location in Linwood that goes all the way up to Marysville and back down to Renton. So we cover the greater Seattle area. Yeah,
but one thing that I think is great about electrical and plumbing is nationally it still applies, right? A lot of the things that you find, I'm guessing, apply to listeners, because I have listeners all over the country for this, right?
Absolutely.
So that's why I thought it'd be great to have somebody on that that is intensively knows about. Can you tell, just so people know, a little bit of your background on how long you've been doing this, that kind of stuff?
Absolutely. So I started actually in Hawaii about 21 years ago as a plumber. Had my first child, decided I needed a better career, and the trades called out to me. So I went into plumbing, became a plumber myself. About 9 years ago, me and my wife and my 3 children moved to Seattle area, where she had actually subsided from originally. So when we landed here, I worked for a few companies, and I was from Hawaii, right? So it was all about having a spirit culture within the company and being here to serve and take care of people, and along doing so, be successful, right? And a lot of the places I was working, I wasn't real happy, I guess you could say. I wasn't finding that culture that I was looking for. So we decided to open up Hart's, and 9 years later now of Hart's, we're about 100 employees. We do electrical and plumbing and do all of our stuff in-house, big sewer replacements, plumbing repipes, all the way down to faucet repairs and toilet repairs.
Okay. Do you, and I've told, what I tell listeners is normally in a normal process that people get an inspection by an independent inspector, and then if they need expertise that they or something comes up that involving plumbing or electrical, any type of issue, that they may have to bring in a second inspector, like a specific inspector that knows that particular field. Do you get called into many of those? Because I tell people that my experience is they usually either just don't buy the house or buy it, and then they call them later or to figure out what it is. Do you come in much for inspections like that?
Yeah, we do. We do a lot of sewer inspections before people buy. Sewer is one of the things that you can't see, right? It's buried under the ground. water goes down, you just assume that it's okay. But in the reality is a lot of times it might not be. So you want to definitely be safe about that. Get a camera inspection of that line. Make sure you don't have any roots or breaks or anything in there, because those things can be quite costly later on down the road if you don't know about it ahead of time. And not to mention a huge inconvenience to your just normal life operation, you know?
Mm-hmm. I have a couple questions, because like here in Seattle, at least, there's a few things that always come up. And then Seattle, Tacoma, I get the same questions a lot, that some people get scared, and depending on the inspector, how they react to it, how the news is delivered. One is galvanized pipes, because here in Seattle, there's a lot of old homes. And we'll get it, and we'll say, and it really depends on the inspector on how they deliver the news that, hey, this house has galvanized pipes. When you get a call from someone say, hey, we got galvanized pipes, do you tell them, okay, replumb the whole house? Like, what is your answer to them when they a new homeowner say?
Yeah. So generally, yes, that's my answer. Get rid of it. It's been being used since before 1900. About 1890, they started using galvanized instead of lead piping. And so here's the problem: when it breaks, it's virtually irreparable, right? So you end up stuck in a hard spot. When you got the chance to get rid of it before you get to that hard spot, it's always the wiser choice. Now, a lot of times money comes into play. It's not cheap to repipe a house, right? And get rid of all that galvanized pipe. So you just got to play out your pros and your cons. I mean, it's never going to be cheap. And as we know in the world today, things aren't getting any cheaper. Clean water. What we see a lot with galvanized is they break, they rot out, they rust because they're steel, right? And steel and water don't go together real well. Mm-hmm. Secondly, what we see, when we cut those pipes apart, they're like an artery. They start to close off inside. And so you lose a lot of restriction and a lot of flow there. And with all that rusty buildup inside of those lines, a lot of times you'll see orange water coming out of your faucets or things like that. And I personally wouldn't drink it. Even the showering in it is, questionable, I would imagine, for a lot of people. And you get the newer pipes that's all plastic and PEX. Now that stuff is virtually bomb-proof, minus, the occasional rat that chews through it or something like that. Once it's installed, it's solid and it's clean pipe. At that point, you can put a filtration system in. And I always like to tell people, wouldn't you like to stand in your shower and drink water? Like, why not?
Okay. Oh, yeah. No, nothing's consumed inside the bathroom area. That's my rule. Well, now, I mean, what I wonder about is, the average new homeowner doesn't have an extra $30,000 to pipe through. Like, I mean, is spot fixing particularly bad? Like, do you find many people that are like, hey, can we just get this one line fixed, do this one area, and then come back next, like as we get money, fix it? Like, do you do that?
Yeah, we do that.
Okay.
The only place that you have a really hard time doing that is where the pipe's underground. The dirt and the acidic in the soils make those old galvanized pipes really swell up. And at that point, the second you start to touch it, it turns into a big can of worms, right? So you end up maybe you can fix it, maybe you can't. It's kind of a case-by-case scenario, and there's always a fear anytime you're dealing with it that you're going to run into that can of worms, right?
Yeah.
So the easy answer is to replace it. At that point, you get a great warranty. It's solid. You don't have to deal with it. If you can't afford that, we can absolutely do spot repairs on the stuff indoors. The outdoor stuff is the stuff that's really questionable, right?
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So long we can get to one of those threaded joints, because they all screw together, that older pipe, versus being soldered together or pressed together with that new PEX stuff. You just got to be able to get to that next joint so you can unscrew it, screw some new stuff into there, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then the other big one I get is an electrical area. Is they come in and there's knob and tube still there. Now, what is the biggest worry when you see that knob and tube is in a house? Like, do you worry that it's going to spontaneously combust right at that moment, or what is? Because some people think that. Some people think I've had people react that, and I'm like, the house is 1930. Like, I mean, it's still here. So what's the big danger that you would tell somebody about having this in your house still?
Yeah. A lot of it, I believe a lot of it's aluminum wiring. Now, keep in mind, I'm a plumber that has electrical within my business. I'm not an electrician. So I would love to have my electrician here with me to help me with that answer. But what I do know about it is it's aluminum wiring. Aluminum wiring conducts at a much higher temperature than copper. And so what it does is it heats up, and anytime a spider web or anything gets around that, it has the potential to catch that on fire, right? Now, like you said, it's been 90 years. The house has been sitting there and the thing ain't burnt down yet. But the reality is it's been heating up, expanding and contracting for 90 years. So is it a matter of if? Maybe, or is it a matter of when? It's the questions out there, and there's no real clear answer, right? We hear the horror stories. We don't talk about all the ones that are still out there so much as we talk about the ones that, oh my gosh, did you hear that this house caught on fire last weekend down the street?
Well, yeah. Okay, I won't deep dive since you're not the electrical person into some of this, but like I do find it fun. Like, people sometimes I'll get inspectors like in this galvanized pipe thing that will say like, look, you got to spend 30,000 at least and repipe this whole thing. That's just it.
Right.
And it's like the big shock. And then I have inspectors that will say, okay, so these are all too old. You're going to need to replace them. But, in practicality, what a lot of people do is once it starts leaking, they fix that section because until you save up the budget to replace the whole thing. And I think that's the same with knob and tube, electrical. Like these are major things. However, I still tend to think people overestimate how, when they say we got to replace all of this, I think all of this, they think all my money for the next 5 years is just gone. Like, and I do think like it's not. I have had people think that things are going to cost as much as the house would cost. And I'm like, that's just not what it is.
That's not
getting educated. What do you think when someone walks into a house for plumbing, what do you think the average person should kind of know or look for going in, or to know when to call you for a problem?
100%. I would say anytime you see those older galvanized pipes, you should definitely get them inspected, right? Just make sure there's no leaks in the crawl space or any of the hidden areas that people don't go a lot. Along with cast iron and galvanized drain lines, keep an eye on those too. I always like the press test, I call it. You go and you just kind of touch the pipe everywhere, push on it a little bit, make sure that it's still solid. Sometimes that stuff will get kind of paper thin on you, and you put your finger right through it and you're like, oh man, that thing is rotten. Now that's something to pay attention to, right?
Yeah. Now, what if it's not like, if you look under the sink, then you see it's not galvanized. Would you bother? Do you shake it? What do you do? Like,
no, I mostly look for signs of leakage. So any kind of run marks down the walls or on the floor of the base of the cabinet, things like that. Just trying to look for presence of water, even if it's not wet right now. Look for signs of it potentially have been leaking in the past, right? And then try and write a story or create a story about that. Okay, well, that piece looks new. It looks like they probably replaced that. I think you're good. Or this looks sketchy. Let's look at this piece here and maybe get that replaced, or let's prevent this destruction to our cabinetry, flooring, and all that kind of stuff, because that's when stuff really gets expensive, is when an actual event happens, right? It's much more better to be proactive versus reactive about that stuff.
Do you deal much with water heaters? Is that like in your scope? Okay, so is there when someone knows the age, do you tell them just to replace it when it's hit 12 years, or do you look for any signs first that water heater should be replaced?
as a professional that works directly with the manufacturers a lot, they recommend replacing them every 8 to 10 years these days, not even 12 anymore. It was 12 in the early 2000s and 90s. And in the last 10, 15 years, they've changed their story a bit. There's a reason.
They're like, hey, you know what? Our stuff doesn't work as well anymore. So just start replacing. Well, that's convenient.
Yeah. So, there's a reason they put a 6-year warranty on almost every single water heater from a manufacturer, right?
Oh, it's the last 8 years. We'll cover you for 6, but 8, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, even if you see no problems, they say just replace it?
Yeah. So a lot of times we get the calls, right? As a professional, people call us when stuff goes haywire. We see anywhere from 30-year-old tanks that still work great, got no issues, to the ones that are 6, 8 years old. They just flooded the house. And the bottom's falling off of them. And it's like, geez, man, it would have been good if we would have caught this before this happened, but it didn't. So here we are.
Do you see them go do you go in to see some and they're like, it's flooding and there is zero sign that there was a problem?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah? Sometimes they just pop.
Wow.
A welded seam inside of their brakes, or, there's a little tiny pinhole that had been leaking for a while, but it's inside. You can't really see it. It ends up going through the base of the heater and somehow finds its way to where you never actually see it. And then you wake up one day or come home from vacation or whatnot. It's a nightmare,
I tell folks to, like, I'll always say, like, look, if it's in your garage, if you don't keep stuff in here, maybe worry a little less. But if it's but these water heaters that are tucked into the middle of their house, like, you get that ahead of time. That's one of those. Oh wait, what? I'm like, I don't want to leave my house now. I'm afraid it's gonna just what? Like, can you tell me, like, is there like a standout event that you've walked into from in your experience, like the nightmare scenario?
Oh my gosh,
like,
so many.
There's so many.
So many.
Are you like an ER doctor? You have the worst cases. Like, that's who you pretty much see is the worst case.
100%. I mean, I'm sure there's ones that I haven't seen that are even worse, but 21 years of this stuff. I think back to Hawaii, and one of the gnarliest ones that I saw is I was on emergency service one night and I got a call at like 2 a.m. And so I drive out there. It was about 45 minutes from the site. I get out there and it's a 41-story condo building, and I pull up and the 40th floor has a waterfall coming off the balcony. And I'm okay, here we go. Let's get right there and see what's happening, And the water heater had blown, and it was a small short water heater that was built under the cabinet in the kitchen. And it was next to the dishwasher. So you couldn't even get to the thing without pulling the dishwasher out, taking the cabinet apart, to even turn the water off to it. And so all the maintenance guys were at home sleeping, and this poor homeowner was there just, I don't know what to do. And so we went to town, started pulling cabinets apart, and we got the water off finally. But by the time we got it off, it had been 2 hours that thing was going. Yeah. And it hit about 15 floors underneath it and destroyed every single unit. And a lot of these bigger buildings like that will require you to replace those water heaters every 8 years because of that scenario. They don't want their insurance rates going up and stuff, right? Not to mention the disaster that it occurs for other homeowners and whatnot. So it's.
I always tell people, get the top floor if you can. When you get there,
I would agree with your garage statement. If it's in the garage, I tend to worry quite a bit less, right? So long they don't have a bunch of stuff stored in there and whatnot. And let it flood. I mean, it'll go out the door and down the driveway, and you'll be okay. We'll get it off, change it that day.
Oh, okay. I can have you settle a debate I've had with my neighbors here.
Yeah.
Those winter comes, right? Or winter in Seattle is not a big tough winter, right? It's a mild winter.
Right.
The little covers that go over the faucet on the outside, these little styrofoam, does that do anything? Does that
it actually
really
does?
How does it stop What does it do? I'm from New England. I don't remember these existing. Like our pipes would straight up freeze, right? But I don't remember little covers on the outside to cover. And I was like, I felt like, you don't even get cold here. Like, what are you? Like, it snowed, but like you're freaking out like it's gonna explode. What does that little piece of insulate, like styrofoam, do? What does that stop?
Yeah. It just keeps it from freezing in there. So a lot of times, so they just hook right onto the handle and you suck it to the wall, which creates its own little space inside of there.
Okay.
That doesn't allow it to freeze because it keeps the temperature what it was basically when you put it on there to a point within reason. Temperatures when they freeze in our state, at least, or in our side of the state, I should say.
Yeah.
It only freezes overnight for the most part, right? It's pretty rare where it's 24 hours a day, days on end that it's freezing. On top of that, when you put that foam thing on there, you'll notice you can't leave the hose connected.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
The biggest thing that makes those things freeze is leaving that hose connected on there. My wife actually did it at my house last year. She left the hose connected after using it in the daytime overnight.
And then it got okay. No, I could definitely
froze and burst, and it was like, oh man. Luckily, it was in my garage, so it didn't matter that much. But
so, like, I mean, what temperature do you worry about? Like, is there a temperature that you worry about?
I would be cautious at under 32 degrees, obviously. But when you get down into the mid 20s, like happens around here occasionally, those are the days where, as a company, we get flooded with frozen pipe calls, right?
Okay, and you do. Okay.
The bummer about the frozen pipe calls is like there's not a whole lot we can do about it except stick a heater in the crawl space and try and heat everything up and melt it,
Do we get frozen in this area? We get a lot of frozen and busted pipes.
For sure.
Okay,
it's like 4 or 5 days a year. It's not very much or very common, but you think back to December before Christmas, we had that ice storm. Yeah, that was one of them. We had a ton of frozen pipes, and nobody could drive anywhere. So everybody that had that going on was just kind of stuck until people could actually get on the roads and move.
Yeah. Because I know people aren't as prepared here for it.
Yeah.
Like, I go into homes all the time as an agent here, and I don't see things set up like everything covered up. And I'm like, I don't know. We always had everything covered, and we still always ran the faucet at night just to make sure it didn't freeze over. Okay, I guess I lose that on there. I always thought they were just. I was like, I think you're making yourself feel better.
There's a couple.
I don't think I've been putting mine on right now, though. Now that you said that, I think I've just been I'm just like, okay, I'm putting it over. I'm not. I don't think I've been sealing it. So now I'm like, I might need to find a different thing to cover.
So it's got that cinch strap. If you take that hole at the end of that rubber leader piece or whatever it is, put it over the nozzle where you would screw your hose on, and then just pull it tight, and that sucks it up against the wall of the house.
Yeah,
and that keeps that thing a little warmer in there from freezing.
It just makes me think now about placement of where they put some of these things, and I'm like,
true story. Okay. True story.
Yeah, I was like, I can go through all my problems with you now. I was like, I assume all the problems I have are the ones that everyone is having in their house.
Yeah.
What do you think? Is there like what is the problem that people have no clue about that they're like, that they have in their, like, that you commonly see, that it's just no idea. I had no idea as a homeowner I would even need to be concerned about this. Is there something that pops into your head?
I think we talked about it already. It's the sewer lines and the galvanized pipe.
People don't know. That's a little surprising. That is a hit to my industry, because it's on our form. Do you want to do a sewer scope or not? And we want, I don't know. What I tell people is this going to make a difference on you buying this house, right? In a competitive market. And when it's not competitive, we do the sewer scope, spend your, I don't know what you guys charge, but I've seen it anywhere between $400 to $800 for pricing on it. That I'm like, look, in a competitive environment, if we have 20 people bidding on this, you replacing this pipe, like, there could be damage in there. It could cost you $1,000 or it could cost you $16,000. are you ready to, like, if everything seems to be working otherwise, like, are you going to do a sewer scope as a condition of buying this?
Right.
But I tell people, no matter whether you waive that condition to inspect it or not, you should get it done as soon as you own it, just for peace of mind. So I'm really shocked that people like wouldn't know, like, or they just forget. I don't know. Now that I'm thinking about, I tell kids, I coach soccer. I tell them the same rule every day for 2 years. And then one day they're like, how come I never heard about that? And then I'm like, oh, okay. Is that maybe what
I hear that from my employees also?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. And I was like, maybe that's what homeowners are like. Sewer scope. Nobody told me about this.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we did. Like,
I'll tell you, 2020 back to 2010, everybody was really on it. Even 2021, COVID hit, market changed, houses became thin and hard to find, and that's when everything started getting a little loose again.
okay.
I just bought my house a year and a half ago out in Kingston. It's on septic. As a plumber, there was 4 bidders. I didn't win the bid at the highest amount, but I wrote a nice letter. Me and my wife wrote a nice letter, and we got the sellers to agree to pick us, basically. And I waived all that stuff. Yeah. But I did ask if I could go look at it myself, since I know what I'm doing, right? So I went through the crawl space. I got into the septic system, cambered the lines, didn't find anything wrong, which was nice. But you just never know. You can't see it, right? You got to check it.
Do you handle septic as well in your company?
So we do light septic. We don't do the pumping or the replacements, but we'll come out and do some maintenance and upgrade kind of work. Only in Pierce County and Thurston County, though. The licensing is different per county around here, so you got to get different licenses in different places, and it's not our core focus, I would say.
Would you ever tell someone, I mean, you just bought one with septic. Would you ever, as a plumber, would you ever tell someone that they shouldn't buy a house because of septic?
No.
Septic. What about septic versus sewer? Is there, like, do you have feelings on it? Like, would you prefer sewer if you could, or?
So that's a tough conversation, because there's lots of ways to look at it, right?
Yeah.
I watch these sewer treatment plants when we have big storms back up and flood out into the sound, and I swim in that thing in the summertime, right?
Yeah.
A septic system. So you got millions of people dumping their waste into that treatment plant that can only handle whatever it can handle. And then something catastrophic happens, and it's a big deal. Now, septics are considered on-site sewage systems, right?
Yeah.
And so if something happens, that's one person that's got to deal with that versus a million. And so the impact on septics to our environment is a lot less than city sewers are. However, there is the ease of having a city sewer. You don't got to maintenance it. You don't got to think about it. Right? So long as you know your pipe's good.
Unless the pipes burst. Yeah. Then you discover how far the city covers until.
Exactly. Which isn't much. Usually you own that sucker all the way to the middle of the street.
Yeah. Because I'll have some people like freak out about. I saw an agent the other day that was like, found out the place was in septic, and she was like, "Oh, that's not good. That's bad." And I'm like, "What?" I was like, my mother's an agent too. She's an agent out in Massachusetts, and she's like, actually, I like septic now, because it's like, it's one less bill I have to deal with, like every single month. And do you think? From your experience, do you think people have a really bad look at septic now for some reason? I mean,
no. So I think there's some nightmares out there. So you get these houses like in the older parts of town, right? Before they had city sewers, and they didn't know they were on septic. And then they find out, oh, I'm still on septic. And that's kind of a nightmare, because the county will make you switch over to the city sewer, right? And that can be scary, because that costs more than just a repair on a sewer or something like that. And then you also, at that point, there's 2 different types of people. There's people that like to live in town, and there's people that like to live on the outskirts or in the country. Yeah. And the country folks don't mind the septic as much, because they want to be in the country. And the city guys, they so like I said, there's a bunch of different ways you can take that conversation. Yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with septic. I think it's an awesome opportunity to live somewhere that you can live anywhere, because you can have a septic system. You don't have to rely on a city sewer or pay that sewer bill, because they actually charge you twice as much for your sewer than they do for your incoming water.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
not cheap. Yeah. And it doesn't
they
even
gotta treat it.
where I am in Shoreline. It's a flat fee. Like there's it doesn't even matter on how much we flush the toilet. It's,
oh, wow.
I mean, I guess we get it. I guess we're charged on the incoming water, but like, I guess it's weird to me that there's no outgoing variance. So even if we did not flush, you know, if it's yellow, kept it mellow, we did that. We might see our water bill go, but it doesn't change our sewage like a little bit. And I've always found that weird. Like I was like, shouldn't you be encouraging me to waste less? Or I don't know. It seems weird to me. Okay. I don't want to take too much of your time up. What is your, like, do you have any last, like, a bit of advice that you give out to somebody as they're looking for a home on what they should do? Like, hey, when remember this, if people have one takeaway on plumbing looking for a house, what would it be?
Confirm what you're being told, confirm what is actually there. I've recently come into quite a few customers that or people that were selling the homes actually and looking for the inspections, which is a good thing, right? They're marketing it as new plumbing throughout, and you go in and you're like, oh man, like I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but
it's not.
Oh, you have new faucets and fixtures, but all the other piping and the important stuff, I mean, it's all important, but the infrastructure to the system is not, right? And so we ended up not getting pulled into the lawsuit, but there was a lawsuit recently that they wanted to pull us to court and have support them on what we saw. And it was like, well, I mean, we can take pictures and videos and send you all the info you need. At the end of the day, we didn't market it. We're here to support you, but just don't always trust what you see or hear, right?
Okay.
Get confirmation from a professional.
Yeah. I mean,
trust but verify, right?
Trust but verify. Yeah. That is, man. Yeah. You know, it does. You do need a reminder. We get used to all these other things that people kind of try to hide with staging, but kind of sometimes forget maybe the outright, maybe not lie, but at least half truth. Technically, there's new plumbing here. A foot of it, but a lot of older stuff. Okay, that's good. That is good. Trust but verify. We should have an episode about that.
That's a good one. Save that.
Yeah. Thank you, Richard. Thank you so much for stopping by and dropping your wisdom. So what's your website again? Just for anybody in the area that needs services. I do have some listeners of the show I know that bought homes down there.
Absolutely. It's hartservices.com. And, you know, we're pretty humble people, right? Plumbers aren't cheap. We don't care if you use us or anybody. Just call somebody that knows what they're doing. There's lots of good companies out there, you know. I make a point of going out and meeting them and making friends with all of them because there's too much old plumbing in our area for one company to handle. So, we're here if you need us, but there's lots of other guys out there too. So
it's just most important to find a plumber with a heart.
That's right. Our brand promise is we care more. That's that aloha spirit thing I was talking about, right?
Yeah.
It's all about taking care of each other in this world today, because you never know who's out there not taking care of each other.
Oh, that's wonderful. And that was it. That was the interview. So there you go. All the information you possibly needed about plumbing. Hopefully you got there, at least from an inspection standpoint, and deep dive into it. I thought that was interesting. Hopefully get more guests like that in here that can talk about their specialties in the different areas, because I think those are valuable, not just for if you're gonna buy a home, but once you're in a home, there's things come up and you want to know more about them, right? And so try to get more guests like that can help you in those specialties. So hey, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Happy home buying, and and thank you for buying a home with Silas Lindenstein.
Silas gets real, buy and sell homes with a thrill. Out Seattle, baby, you know what's the deal. And he keep it real, showing you the way till it's better known. I help you buy your forever. He a real estate Jedi. Yeah, he got you. Silas Lindenstein got your back, let him spot you. Help you sell your home while you do what you love. So come in, don't forget to wipe your feet on the rug. Silas gets real, buy and sell homes with a thrill. Out Seattle, baby, you know what's the deal. And he keep it real, help you sell your home, show you everything as you move on to better things. He a real estate Jedi, yeah, he be that. Silas Lindenstein got your back, just believe that. Help you buy the home that you want, so come on, have a seat and let's find your dream home, let's get it going. Yeah.